Scotland's greatest poet has illuminated the Scottish cultural landscape with poetry and song that both entertains and instructs in equal measure. His celebrity status today, though, is a far cry from his humble beginnings in Ayrshire. Born in Alloway on the 25th of January 1759 to William and Agnes Burns, Robert was the oldest of 7 children. The family were farmers, but times were hard, and even as a child, Robert was expected to work the land to help make ends meet. It was a harsh existence. The strenuous effort required to plough the fields damaged his heart and continued to affect his health throughout his short life. Despite the financial problems which faced the family, Robert's father was determined to provide his children with a proper education. And so, with his neighbours, he hired a tutor to teach their children. The young Robert's imagination was also ignited by the stories of Betty Davidson, an old widow who stayed with the family. It was she who Burns described as possessing the largest collection in the country of tales and songs concerning devils, ghosts, fairies, brownies, witches and warlocks. Although life was hard, Burns remembered the land fondly.
Then a folding letters gang, my bonny dearie. We'll get down by Cluden side, through the hazel spreading wide, are the waves that sweetly glide. Take the moon say clearly.
As Burns grew up, it was not just the land he was fond of. He also loved women. Along with some friends, he was a member of the Tarbolton Bachelors Club, a club that met to drink and discuss the members' romantic exploits. Throughout his life, Burns was a member of several clubs, offering him both help and opportunities, whilst providing him with an active social life. It was around this time that Burns also met the woman who was to become his wife, Jean Armour. Jean was one of the belles of Mauchline, but was, in Burns's words, the jewel for me of them all. He was a romantic at heart, and a man not afraid to express his emotions. These qualities produced some of the most tender love songs ever written.
My love is like a red, red rose that's newly sprung in June. My love is like a melody that's sweetly played in June. As fair thou art, my bonny lass, so deep in love am I, and I will love thee still, my dear, till all the seas go dry.
This was a poetically rich period for him. Between 1784 and 1785, he wrote significant pieces that would form the core of his work, poems chiefly in the Scottish dialect. Published in Kilmarnock in 1786, it proved to be a phenomenal success, thrusting Burns firmly into the limelight. From a national perspective, Burns's decision to write in Scots did much to rehabilitate a language which was in danger of being eradicated by English. The poems were rooted in his real-life culture and experience, but also touched upon universal themes that gave them widespread appeal. To a Mouse recounts Burns's accidental destruction of the creature's nest while farming, but incorporates heartfelt sympathy for the suffering of another, the power of nature, and the randomness of chance.
But Missy, thou art no thy lane, in proving foresight may be vain. The best laid schemes o' mice and men gang after gley, and leave us naught but grief and pain for promised joy.
Owing to the success of his book of poems, he was persuaded to visit Edinburgh to have a second edition printed. In the capital, Burns enjoyed a degree of celebrity as the great and the good of Edinburgh society came out to meet the man who had produced such powerful poems. Indeed, even Sir Walter Scott, another of Scotland's great literary figures, recalled how impressive the poet was. It was also in Edinburgh that the Scottish author Henry Mackenzie gave him the defining title of the heaven-taught ploughman. It was a marketing ploy which proved beneficial to Burns and those who bestowed it upon him. Although Burns did not stay long in the capital, he cultivated some interesting friendships, including a platonic relationship with Agnes McElhose, with whom Burns enjoyed an affectionate correspondence. When Agnes departed for the West Indies, he responded from the heart, writing the moving song A Fond Kiss for her.
A fond kiss and then we said, a farewell and then forever. Deep in heart-wrung tears I'll pledge thee, pouring sighs and groans I'll wage thee. Who shall say that fortune grieves him while the star of hope she leaves him? Really cheerful twinkle lights me, dark despair around me lies me.
After his initial success in Edinburgh, Burns began to tour parts of Scotland, both to promote his image and to gather material for future poems and songs. He toured through the borders and the Highlands, visiting subscribers to the second edition of his poems, forming working relationships with James Johnson, who produced the Scots Musical Museum, and George Thomson, who gathered material for a select collection of original Scottish airs for the voice. Burns wrote and adapted a large amount of songs in his final years. Among the greatest of these is A Man's a Man for All That, an anthem for egalitarianism and the worth of each individual regardless of their background.
Is there for honest poverty that hangs its head and heart? The coward slave we pass him by, we dare be poor for all that and all that, of toils obscure and all that. The rank is but the guinea stamp, the man's the gold for all that.
In 1788, Burns moved to Dumfries, taking a lease on a farm at Ellisland. However, farming was proving to be a thankless task for the bard, and to make ends meet, he trained as an exciseman, collecting taxes for the government. Eventually, he became an exciseman full-time, but poetry was still at the forefront of his mind. In 1790, Burns completed one of his finest poems, Tam O'Shanter, an epic tale recounting the exploits of our hero Tam in the face of devils, ghosts and wraiths. Carried away by drink and lured to the deserted Kirk Alloway by light and music, Tam observes the hellish horde in mirth and merriment. And in a moment of madness, he shouts his appreciation for one of the dancers.
Tam tint his reason altogether and roars out, "Well done, Cutty Sack!" And in an instant, all was dark, and scarcely had he Maggie rallied when out the hellish legion sallied.
Chased by forces of darkness, Tam heads for the Brigadoon, knowing that the evil spirits won't be able to cross the river. But they're gaining on him as he approaches on Maggie, his trusty steed.
For Nanny, far before the rest, hard upon noble Maggie pressed, and flew at Tam, furious ettle. But little wist she Maggie's mettle. A spring brought off her master hail, but left behind her ain grey tail, the carlin clottered by the rump, and left poor Maggie scarce a stump.
Burns had done more than enough to secure his legacy. Unfortunately, he continued to suffer from ill health and heart problems, exacerbated by the limited medical knowledge in the period. He worsened his condition by bathing in the sea, mistakenly believing that this would help to heal him. As his health deteriorated, so too did his output of songs and poetry. On July 21st, 1796, at the age of just 37, Burns died in Dumfries. His funeral took place on July 25th, on exactly the same day as his youngest child Maxwell was born. In the aftermath of his death, a memorial edition of his poems was issued to raise funds for his widow and family. This was only the tip of the iceberg, however, as Burns's reputation would grow and grow, influencing and reaching people throughout the world with the power of his poems and songs. Today, Burns is rightly celebrated as Scotland's national poet, and his birthday is one of the most important nights in the Scottish cultural calendar. From Canada and the United States to Australia and New Zealand, Burns clubs continue to honour the bard by eating a Burns supper, complete with haggis, which has become something of a national dish. And Burns has done much to raise the status of this humble pudding to international attention, as he himself put it.
Fair for your honest sonsy face, great chieftain of the pudding race. Aboon them all you take your place, Painch, tripe or fairn. Wheeler, you worthy of a grace, as lang's my airn.
Perhaps the greatest legacy that Burns has left us, even 250 years after his birth, is his ability to bring people from all around the world and from many disparate and varied backgrounds together in appreciation of his achievements. Although his life was hard, it shone with moments of astonishing brightness, and there is no more fitting tribute to the bard than to end with a song sung the world over, bringing people together in friendship and harmony and promising hope for the future. Auld Lang Syne.
Should all acquaintance be forgot and never brought to mind,
should old acquaintance be forgot, and old lang syne? For auld lang syne, my Jo, for